Well, divided we stand. Have you had enough? When Dave and I started this thing in April, we knew we were in for the long haul. And we knew philosophically that there was a break in this country and there was no road back. And we've discussed this many, many times on many, many shows. And after watching today's proceedings, in fact, if you look at the impeachment hearings as a whole, I would have to say we're in worse shape than we thought we were. And again, for a lot of reasons. Tonight, Saturday, the 13th of February, Dave and I are going to take a deeper look into things. Hold on to your seats, because some things don't look that good. And I'm going to hope that my compadre, David Price, will be able to cheer us up as we commiserate over what was a real tragedy today. So, without any further ado, my good friend David Price from Arlington, Virginia. Dave, how are you tonight?
Well, let's see. I'm breathing, living, still trying to get the COVID vaccine, which is a problem here. So I suppose I could blame that on Donald Trump. But yeah, of course. I think tonight anybody with any faith who was not a Republican, or maybe even if you were a Republican, any faith that Republicans might do the right thing. Of course, that was dashed. Was it a surprise? No, of course it wasn't a surprise. I think didn't you use the word tragedy? Did I hear you say that?
If I'm pretty sure I used the word tragedy. I'm
And
pretty sure.
yes, and I think today was another. What am I trying to say? I think we, in the book of the Great American Tragedy, and that was another chapter today, and we'll talk about it. I mean, we live to fight another day, so am I happy? Of course not. Did I expect anything different? No. Did I hope for a different result? Yes. Am I going to do what I read something? Oh, it was 7. Well, I don't care if it was 16. You needed 17, right? And there weren't 17 Republicans. And tonight we'll analyze. I don't have a direct line to any of them, thank God. But you look, and I think we could talk about some of the reasons why they did what they did. It's just speculation, but I mean they've left little clues. You know what? So and I hope tonight, maybe more than any other week, I think we do want to. We're building this family, and I'm sure there's some people, who are more upset than I am with it, and I hope they ask us some things so that it really is, again, it's one of those nights when you commiserate with your community, or you sit home and drink and shoot up heroin alone. And it's always better to commiserate with your community.
Right. Well, Dave, I'm always trying to think where I really want to start with the Divided We Stand, video show, and tonight I think I want to go with this, Dave.
Okay.
Both of us don't have great expectations about what the Republicans are going to do or what they will do in post impeachment. So I really didn't have any great expectations from the Republicans, and like you said, you kind of expected this thing to happen. But I think what hurts the most is I saw a group of people, the House prosecutors. They were so well prepared and they were so eloquent, especially the closing arguments were just one. I mean, literally, I could feel my eyes getting heavy, hearing some of these stories and how well they spoke. They were very, very clear, as compared to the defense. And the only thing that really irritated me was that Mike Lee was interrupting them. We can get to that later because he's a piece of shit. But did at any point you say to yourself, Dave, like, wow, all the facts are there, all the tweets. It's just so embarrassing for the other side. They're going to have to vote this way. And God damn it, what did they do? They did the same thing. And then, I mean, you kind of fool yourself. I mean, I am the realist. I'm almost a nihilist. I'm not a nihilist, but I just always expect the ball to drop. But for that fleeting second, I thought I saw that beacon of gold there, because they just spoke, so every one of them was wonderful. One was just as good as the next, and still the Republicans somehow just took it away. Did you ever get that feeling?
Well, look, I'm going to say, was I impressed with what they did? Absolutely. Was that an outstanding job that the House managers did? Of course. You said it, Brian. One right after the other, right after the other. But I mean, there were so many signs, going in. The one day 15 Republicans showed up late. They didn't even care enough. I think it would be a great. Prior to the pandemic, I did presentations at the Smithsonian. I'm almost tempted. I mean, I don't have any sway there, but I was going to ask the Smithsonian, collect the doodles that some of those Republicans did. That would be a great, while America is falling apart, here's what Rand Paul drew, and here's
Right.
No. So I think what it proves a number of things. One thing is, at least in the Senate, on the Republican side, facts do not matter. I think the other thing that is maybe more disturbing, for anybody who's looking at that, like young people, and saying, "Man, they won. I want those two clients." Well, they would say, "I want those two guys who defended Trump." As a reporter, I had an opportunity to cover a lot of court. Unfortunately, a couple of times I was there for issues like First Amendment issues. That was kind of fun, although it's more nerve wracking when you're the defendant. And saw a whole lot of lawyers, and whatever those two were that assembled for Trump, the two main ones, I have no idea. I don't know if you had a chance to see Rachel Maddow's show. Yeah, last night, I guess, right? Yeah, I get confused. I don't always watch it.
I usually watch it, but I did not see it.
No, and my wife watches it. And sometimes I'll sit there.
I watched Bill Maher last night. That's all I remember watching.
Yeah. But Rachel just did a thing on the. She actually did a wonderful piece where she talked about how her humor was so informed by Gilda Radner. And if you remember, one of my, I think it was Gilda was so brilliant. Another one taken way too young. But my favorite character of hers was Emily Latella. I mean, it was one of the great. And for anybody who doesn't know who Gilda is, she was on the original cast of Saturday Night Live. And what she used to do is she would do, and Norm Crosby, who was even before her, was a master at this. They would mispronounce words, and play with words. And one of my favorites, and Rachel played that clip. So Emily Latella would get there, she'd get all angry. She was this little, she was made up as a little, and she said, "I don't understand why everyone's so upset with Soviet jewelry. Why are, or my favorite was this one. Okay, I don't understand. What's wrong with violins on TV? And of course it was violence. And she was with it. And Rachel pointed out at least a dozen the prosecutor just mangled the words. I mean, yeah, okay, that can happen, but not to the degree if you're defending the president. So I think, first of all, let's look what was good, about what happened, right? One thing that was good is we saw a whole cadre of relatively young Democrats that we can hope someday are in the Senate, right? Every one of those would make a great senator. All right. So that's good. We saw that Donald Trump, the president, I got to come back to this all the time, Brian, the president of the United States could only get, Tweedledee and Tweedledummer to defend him. Now, of course, what you've got is you could say, well, that's even worse now, because look, let's face it. Everybody's going to want to attack Mitch McConnell, and I'm not. I'm done attacking Mitch McConnell. Here's why. He's now like Tom Brady to me. I really, sorry, daughter-in-law. I know you're a diehard New England's Patriots fan, and any of the rest of you are. Tom Brady, I don't think is a very nice human being. Now, I don't know him well. I'll just give you, a couple things. He's refused to shake hands sometimes right after the games when he's lost. He doesn't lose much, so maybe that's it. Or he walked into the stadium, which I really find indefensible when you are a role model for young people, the Super Bowl, not wearing a mask. Why? Why can't you just put on a mask so that maybe young people will see that, but Tom Brady wins, right? And Mitch McConnell wins. He does. Okay. I don't like necessarily the way he does it. Does he kind of mix up the rules as he goes along, but they're within the parameters, right, of what's going on. And if you don't see his duplicity, I loved it today. Today when he said, we can't do this. He's not president anymore. Okay, that would imply that you could have done it when he was president, right? And who didn't call the Senate back to vote? Mitch McConnell. Now, we'd already pointed out to them that they were able to get a Supreme Court justice through. This trial could have definitely gotten through. And the point is, then we can single out, and we will later on tonight, I'm sure, the whole thing. But the rogues gallery. Okay, so you take Hawley, you take Cruz, you take Mike Lee. My new least favorite senator, at least today, is Rand Paul. And you go on, and it's almost like you're watching. I don't know, watching Batman, right? And Batman or any of the superheroes, they have all these villains, and like which one's the worst villain? Well, basically, with the Republicans, let's do Batman first. It was whatever villain he's facing at the moment, and now it's with whatever Republican is in the news. I mean, we have 7. But before I make the heroes of them, I want to look at their whole record, and their whole record is not good. HLS, you're absolutely correct. That is true. And, my thing, I'm going to continue to attack Trump along the lines when I first started, being against him, which was, the moment he came down that, it's long before that, but I'm saying the moment he came down that escalator, to announce he was going to be president. As I've said it before, he has the ability to bring out the worst in people, probably better than anyone I've ever seen. His supporters, his attractors, his detractors, it doesn't matter. And I think of all the things, Brian, that made me the angriest today, not unexpected. Did you see his comments?
Whose comments?
Trump's.
No, actually, I didn't.
Yeah, well, you're not on Twitter. They came out, and I should have looked. I mean, I assume, I don't know how he got him out, because he doesn't have any access.
Say anything about
McConnell? No, basically what he said is, this just shows you it was the greatest witch hunt in American history, and it should never have been. And I want to tell you, MAGA has just begun to move and come forward. And you know what?
Rhetoric.
As long as MAGA destroys the Republican Party, which it may well do, I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. Now, here's a question for you, Brian, and anybody else out there. And it's completely speculative.
Right.
And I think, one of our really good family members here at Divided We Stand, I think it was Tammy or somebody, I'm pretty sure it was Tammy, posted, the double meme where Trump says, I could shoot somebody, in Times Square. And then they put the rogues gallery up and said, or you could come in and threaten to kill us all in the car, and we still wouldn't vote to convict you. I wonder, and I'll always wonder this, and it doesn't matter because you can't do alternate or alternative history. But if somebody had been killed, and there was somebody killed, obviously the Republicans don't care about a dead police officer, but had it been, and I think you play the game both ways. If it had been Pelosi or Schumer, what would have happened? If it had been Pence, would it have been different? If it had been Romney or somebody else, and we'll never know that. So we can say on one hand, certainly the members of the House and the Senate, if they want to go home to their families, were very lucky that day. The United States, not so much. Certainly and again, fair or not fair, I certainly find a difference between the woman who was shot dead and the police officer died. One had no business being there. and the other was trying to do his job.
So
So you got to
what
look
did
at.
you want to? I am sorry, I might
No,
have missed it.
I rambled there. That was it. What do you think if somebody had gotten killed, a ranking senator?
On Fifth Avenue, or
No, in the
oh, you mean as far as the actual
yeah.
tumult
Would it
on?
would it would it have been would it have been
I
different?
thought
Do you
that,
think?
Dave. I
Well, I think
actually,
that's why I don't know. I mean,
that ran across because there's a lot of things been running across my head. I mean, that was something that was running across my head today. I'm going to get something. I'm going to ask you about. I thought there was a
right.
little war, personal war, going between Vanderveen and Raskin. But let me answer that. I thought about that, Dave, and I thought maybe that would have been the straw that would break the camel's back had somebody been shot. Like they had to do it. But we keep
Would they?
saying, we keep the
I know.
bar keeps
There you
getting
are.
higher and higher and higher and higher.
I know.
And then all of a sudden you say, why am I teasing myself? Like I think, are we all of us the same on the left side, on the progressive side? Are we constantly inventing these things in our brains like, okay, well maybe if this happens, they'll finally stop, And then at some point, there's no way to go because essentially you're fantasizing like, well, I hope every Republican gets COVID and dies, and we live. It doesn't work that way. It takes something much more. It took a General Sherman to just kind of go right through the. I mean, that ended. I mean, I keep going back to Sherman because that's the only time I feel that actually did something. It put an end to no more bullshit. We're burning everything down because you put us in this situation. You put my soldiers in this situation. Now I'm putting you into something worse, and you can't even raise the white flag. And that was the way. I don't want to go into a history lesson of that, but I'm at this point where,
you're right.
Dave, I see no escape, and I don't think you do either. So
what I do see though, and again, our roles, not our roles. We're not playing a role here. By the way, you're nowhere near a nihilist, but you are.
No, I'm not a nihilist. Yeah, I am not a nihilist. No,
I know you're not.
Right.
I know you're not.
Because I would never just shit on the world because I'm obviously the opposite of a nihilist. But I'm very negative, and that should not be confused with a nihilist at all, ever.
And I'm more on the optimistic and positive side,
right?
And I think what we do share in common, both of us, is we kind of look at it tampered by reality. So I do see, there may come a point, and it is happening, okay, where the Democrats are going to wake up and say, well, there's only one way we can win this. We got to almost be as bad as they are, that we can't become quite that bad.
Right? Because they have a lower threat. They're such, they're so afraid that maybe you can do it to them. You can go to a lower level.
I mean, like for example, some things that maybe aren't that easy. But if I were a senator tonight and I said, okay, they did it, I would be working overtime to end the filibuster, to end it. And I don't care if someday, if I need it or the Democrats need it or whatever. It doesn't, Human, you're right. I mean, America's we've cheapened it. Actually, quite honestly, that's one of my things. I believe that there's a number of people in America that care more for their guns and a mistaken idea of what the Second Amendment says, rather than life. And it's not just the NRA, and it's not just the Republicans. It's a lot of people that I know, and that you probably know too. So, maybe this again, kind of in a way, will force the Democrats' hand and say, look, nobody who didn't have, if you'd brought down 12 space aliens, right, who had no concept of Earth, no concept of its laws, no concept of party, and put them there as the jury, and they saw and heard the House manager's presentation, and then saw what Tweedledum and Tweedledummer did, they would convict. And so what that says is, it's just not going to be fair. The ones I should use more statistics, but I don't. I mean, I think I'm always the one, what is it? You can, you can bend statistics and all that. But here's the thing. There you go. You got it. The reptile with a grin. Great, actually, a great blues song done properly. But this idea that, I don't know, that somehow, as with the Democrats, that they don't have to do certain things, or they don't want to do certain things, or maybe it's not the right thing to do. And I'm not going to fault Joe Biden. I mean, anybody else can fault him. I think he said what America wanted to hear. And this is what I'm going to say now. To tie in, I mentioned the statistics, and I wanted to get that remark in. If what I read today was correct, and I'm going to round it off a little bit, the senators who voted to convict Donald Trump represent 63% of the population of America. The senators who voted to let Trump go represent 37% of the American population. Now, remember, that's talking about geography. It's not saying that, Now, if you do back it up, the numbers were above 60% of people that felt that Trump deserved to face penalties from the impeachment. So there you are, right? What happens? And this is something I'd really like to see our family members who are out there, their thoughts on it. What do you do when a Republican Party that represents, if you do it by population, 37%, if you do it by registration, roughly a third of the country, if you do it by color, what are they, 90% white in a country that's moving in the other direction? What do? Well, you try every way you can to stop them, right? But I mean, it's not easy answers. Do you, and you need constitutional convention. And the drawback is when the founding fathers did the country, I think they did the right thing. They didn't make it easy to make change, right? HLS or somebody earlier said, the Senate is designed not for quick action. That's actually the way the Senate was designed, because it was supposed to be these statesmen coming in. Again, it'd be interesting tonight, if we could get Washington, Ben Franklin, Madison, Jefferson, all the people we talk about, the American forefathers, and say, Tom, what'd you think about today? I mean, again, that's speculative. I don't think, I've said all along, and I'll always maintain this, that I want to know what you're doing. First of all, it looks like you're, touching yourself in an inappropriate area.
No, I'm actually writing on. I don't want to forget. You were going on, and I don't want to forget what I wanted to say. So I'm going to write that down.
I was just messing with. And then the other thing would be, though, is I think there are two things that why I'm always, or three things actually, why I really don't have a problem anymore with changing the Constitution. First of all, what else do we have that we follow that's 270 years old, right? Or whatever it is. That's number one. Number two, I think even if they were the most brilliant thinkers in the history of humankind, and they weren't, they were very smart men, I assume, for his time, there's no way they could envision, I don't even think they could envision it'd be hard to envision past the 18th century, let alone into the 21st. And the third thing is, and I've said this all along and I'll never change, that's why I was so objecting to Trump's original, which was, of course, a nationalist symbol, make America great again. My question would be, when was America great and who was it great for? And it certainly wasn't great when the country was founded. Maybe, Brian, when the country was founded, it was less representative than it is now because it was really basically white landholding men, right? And most of them had access to or were educated. Nothing for women, nothing for blacks, certainly nothing for the Native Americans. We didn't really have immigrants. And as you go through history, I was thinking about this, and I'll get off this kick about, I don't really care if people call me anti-American anymore. We were the best. Again, saying we were the best country at any point is just like saying, okay, yeah, we were the best. We were the tallest of the pygmies. It's not really something you stand up and applaud. But I don't know why the other day I started thinking about Davy. Oh, I know why. I was listening to one of my favorite groups, the Kentucky Headhunters, and I got thinking about Kentucky and Davy Crockett, and then thinking about Mary. And when I was growing up, I never had that coonskin cap, but I'm 10 years older than you, Brian. I mean, Davy Crockett, this king of the wild frontier. We all knew the song. We went out and got the Crockett 6-shooters. Okay, so American hero, and everything I've read about him since, he was just a son of a bitch. But because the American myth around him, is that independent frontiersman. You can look at the Alamo. Really, we had no business annexing Texas. We really didn't. Oh yeah, maybe now Ted Cruz comes from there. Maybe it'd have been better if we left it with Mexico. I don't know. But this idea, this which of course Trump promotes, and people fall into this American exceptionalism. That may be the biggest crock of shit of all. As we have ideals that are exceptional, and we've never once, and certainly the example this week, we fall so far short of that. So, I'm anti-Donald Trump. I'm anti-Republicans. I'm anti anybody today who supports Donald Trump. And I don't know that I'm even pro-America anymore in that sense of, rah, rah, USA. USA for what? Right. USA for what right now?
Dave, ahead, I wanted to, there's a couple things where I want to go tonight and shoot a couple examples. Okay. It ties in with some of our former shows. We had mentioned how, obviously Fox is a propaganda arm for the Republicans, especially for Trump. But I thought it was kind of interesting, and I'm going to show a clip from, the hearings. And you may remember this video, this ridiculous video showing Democrats, not Democrats, just liberals in general sounding off, and some people saying some things like fight. But it's not so much what you see, but let's just listen to what you hear. Okay, now I'm going to try to set this up in the next scene here.
All right. Sounds good.
Let's just do this, and we're going to go to this, and hopefully we'll be able to hear it. If you can hear it, Dave, tell me right off the bat, all right?
I will.
Okay. And there's an echo. Okay. I'm going to have to turn. Okay. But you'll tell me if there's going to be an echo for a second, then it's going to go off because I'm going to shut you down, okay? Here we go.
Constant drumbeat of heated language.
Yeah. Got it?
Well, as I'm sure everyone watching expected, we need to show you some of their own words.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings.
Now listen carefully in the background.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
You gotta be ready to throw a punch. You have to be ready to throw a punch.
Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
That I thought he should have punched him in the face.
I feel like punching him.
I'd like to take him behind the gym if I were in high
school. Make this louder.
If I were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him. No, I wish you were in high school, I could take him behind the gym.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Take him out now.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite.
Now, let me switch scenes for a second, Dave. Okay. Sorry, everybody. It just takes me a little time. Okay, now, hopefully you can hear me. Dave, you can hear me, correct?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so that wasn't the one that I wanted, but it still illustrated what I was
talking about. That was a good one.
Well, and it wasn't even the images I was worried about. It was just the music, because there was one like that, so you'll forgive me again for not choosing the right clip. There's one clip, and that one had it. They had that ominous music in the background.
Yeah, you could barely hear it, but yeah.
But you could hear it, and then you could see that when they had a Trump video, you'd have Trump where it says, "We're the party of law and order," and then they have some uplifting music, and then they'd switch to the Democrats and like war drums, and they kept going back and forth, and of course Van der Veen was accusing the Democrats of manipulating the videos, which is bullshit. They just showed the videos. They might have had some overlays, but that's was just to show the location of the individuals. But that, to me, immediately, what network did that sound like? That sounded exactly like Fox. It's exactly what we're talking about. And it was infuriating to me, because as it was, you knew it was all bullshit, Dave. I mean, you know what they were doing. But here's the other thing about that. I'm going to get us both on screen here, Dave.
Right.
And that is that if you noticed, like this, who's it? Schoen was, I guess his name is Schoen or something like that. He was like the lead for Trump's attorneys. Van der Veen was on a lot, but Van der Veen did it also. But Schoen did this shit. He has his yarmulke on. And he goes like this. He goes, and points up to the heavens, so to speak. So from my lips to God's ears, and then you had Van der Veen looking up at the camera, and he's not playing at all to the senators, because he knows the Democrats aren't going to listen to him, and he knows that he's got the vote in the bag. But what he's doing is he's doing this Fox thing again. And who is the one that's driving it? It was Trump, because you remember he replaced his lawyers. People say, well, the other ones quit and blah blah blah, but it's Trump wanted what he wanted.
Yeah. Oh, no question about that.
Now,
Trump got what he wanted.
Okay, he got that. So now all of a sudden you have the manipulation with the sounds, which works very well for anybody out there who's listening tonight. You know that you have these Trumpers who they listen to that music and it gets them. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you, which was kind of interesting, Dave, and if I can, I have it set up.
Okay.
I think I have it set up. Yeah. Now, Van der Veen, and by the way, when I was watching, I thought, this guy looks like an old guy. But I said, I'm gonna look at. I thought he was somewhere around 75, 72, somewhere around that age. And I feel old now. The guy's 3 years younger than I am. So
yeah, but you know what that shows, Brian? That just shows when you're hideously horrible in your heart. It shows on your body. Well, just like, no, listen, I mean, I don't want to make fun of Kellyanne Conway, heaven forbid, but I'm going to make fun of Kellyanne Conway. She really looked pretty bad, when she left, the Trump White House. And I'm not judging as a woman. You could say the same. I mean, Barack Obama gets gray. I got that. But I mean, this was almost like, it's like the evilness, the ugliness begins to manifest himself.
Sometimes it does, but I'm just going to say it was just that part was just kind of weird for me. But I do want to show a clip, Dave.
Okay.
Again, everybody just try to stay with me on this.
You don't have any clips there.
Let me just. Hopefully, it'll switch in a second. It has to wait for my. Okay, let's not do that for a second. Here we go back here. And there. Okay, now this is Van der Veen, or whatever his name is. Van der Veen? I think it's Van der Veen. But I want you, Dave, to listen for a second. Now, Van der Veen, during his closing arguments today, let me just get the echo off here for you. In his closing arguments, there were times when he did not look down, and he basically did what you do. Just you speak to the public. You don't have anything memorized. You have an outline of what you want to do. And then there were times where he read verbatim.
Yeah,
and now I'm going to put on this. Now, after this is done, I want you to tell me if you think this was Van der Veen's words or who in the Trump administration. We know who it is, but I'm going to just throw that out there. It sounded like a certain person. So let's just listen.
The House manager suggested that this recent history is irrelevant to the current proceedings. But not only is Democrats' behavior surrounding last year's riots highly relevant as precedent, and not only does it reveal the dishonesty and insincerity of this entire endeavor, it also provides crucial context that should inform our understanding of the events that took place on January 6th. Many of the people who infiltrated the Capitol took pictures of themselves and posted them on social media. To some, it seems, they thought that it was all a game. They apparently believed that violent mobs, destruction of property.
Okay, now he went on, and I'm not going to make this something we're just going to keep playing these things, Dave. But what I guess I am saying is here, I don't think that he actually wrote that. I mean, I know that's, I think, coming from, I think who would you think that's coming from right there?
Well, I'm not going to say Trump because there were a number of words that had more than two syllables.
Right. It cannot be Trump.
So we can't do that.
Who does that sound like when you're starts making your attack on the Democrats? Who would that be? That to me, there's only one person that comes to mind when something like that comes up, and again, this vitriol.
I don't know.
You're going to agree as soon as I say it. But it's Stephen Miller. I really think that Stephen Miller. That sounded like Stephen Miller on multiple occasions, and I think that's a lot to do with Trump, because I think Trump was already really tough with these. He says, "I want it this way," because in a way, Trump's smarter than the attorneys. Because again, what does Trump worry about? This is a show to him. He loves this stuff. He wants to make it just like a Fox presentation. He's going to have the audios. He's going to play it just like the WWE with him getting in a fight with Vince McMahon. And that's what it turned. That's all he has to do. He just has to make it a show. And what he loves about Miller knows how to write. Just like Fox knows how to show the visuals and the music, Miller. And I think that's the only reason he likes Miller, because Miller can write in the style that Trump likes.
Well, I'm not going to argue with that. I think that's true. I think there's a couple of things. Well, first of all, I mean, think about it. Who's been with Trump the longest? Miller. Now, some people left Trump of their own accord, and some people he forced out. So obviously, there has to be something special. I think part of that may well be, that. Maybe Trump does realize this guy can put into a little bit of more, not flowery language, but some kind of different language than I can.
But you could hear the definite difference between when he was reading and then he spoke his own.
That's true. I hope you listen to Bob Woodward. I know Woodward's working on a book, and everybody in Washington D.C., with the exception of me, is working on a book. It'll be we're still learning stuff about Watergate, right? I mean, and how many years has that been? This will be 50 years unfolding, but I really Miller has kind of. I mean, we talk about him, and some people talk about him, but he was able, and this is what I think is so. Interesting about Miller, and maybe this is another reason why Trump likes him. Miller doesn't need the spotlight. He doesn't. He works in the dark corners, and he was very effective. So I think that's part of it. I also think another reason for the Miller-Trump union is that they share something in common. One is the emotional racist, and the other is the intellectual racist, right? I think, they probably do sit around and share things. And Miller never, I mean, Miller signed on knowing fully what he was signing on for. Did he use Trump? Of course. Did Trump use him? Of course. But obviously, I mean, even Bill Barr jumped ship. Nikki Haley, come on. People that's someone I never understood.
Gary, I think agrees with us there that this was written speech material.
No question. And
because there was just, again, I don't want to beleaguer the point, but you could see with Van der Veen, there was two different styles when he was like this and all this shit. And then all of a sudden he's like, he has to take his pen to actually look at it.
And Brian, I mean, you summed it up, or put it, I shouldn't say summed it up, you perspected. No, put it in
Chad got it. By the way, Chad guessed it right. Chad, I know I'm a little bit late with the comments, folks, but you're right.
That's okay. But no, the idea that you said, Trump doesn't care really about guilt or innocence. And I don't even know if he thinks he's guilty or innocent. I don't think it matters to him. As long as he was, but he wants theater. No, he doesn't even want theater. He wants TV as he believes it is, which is.
Dave, you want to answer that real quick?
57 voted guilty.
So the more voted guilty, not why they quit. Why did they acquit if it was 57-43?
Oh, I didn't. Wait a minute.
You have to have 2/3, that kind of thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was restoring the question. That's okay. Right. Yeah. What happens is you could have had was it magic number 67?
67, right?
Yeah. So you were 10 short. So if you had 66, now again, that's that idea. Yes, Anthony, that's true. You really want to lose some sleep tonight?
He got rid of
Mr. Davis?
Bannon, but he didn't get rid of Miller. That's the funny thing.
Here's the thing. You really want to lose some sleep tonight?
No, but I'll let you go.
Okay, well, here we go. What about if that group, and certainly Miller was in the inner squad, Bannon, Trump. What about if, Bannon said, look, boss, we're working here for Russia a little bit. And so I'm going to go off. Do you know where he went? You know where Bannon went when he left? Well, first he tried to go back to Breitbart, and they canned him. But he was actually over in Europe working with some governments there. Spreading this Trumpism. So what about if they were playing this 9-dimensional chess, right? We've got America, which they certainly did, and we're going, no, I don't think that's what happened. But again, there's the difference. Bannon wants to be out there, right? To be a name, to be known.
Right.
Miller, much more devious because he doesn't want to do that. 2 comments, Brian, I've been wanting to make here just real quickly about the things that you've been presenting. Every time, and this is nothing new, but listening to the arguments presented by the Trumps, whatever they were, I just kept hearing the voice of Pee Wee Herman's, Paul Rubens. And here's what I kept hearing. I know you are, but what does that make you? I know I am, but what does that make you? That's something you do. It's something to do when you're 8 years old on the playground.
Yeah, that is like the typical, and also the look over there thing.
It's always what they did. Okay, well, my mom ended that a long time ago for me. She just said, "Look, son, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Don't care how you cut it. Don't say somebody else. It's on you." Right. That's number one. Number 2, and this is something that a wise attorney, I hate when people, say, "Oh, law." It's just like saying they're all the same. Democrats are better than Republicans in government. There's no question about that. And there are good attorneys, and many of them. But here's what happens. Brian, I got an echo.
Sorry.
That's okay. Here's what happens is this attorney said, and he said, if you don't have the facts, you don't have the evidence, if your case is weak, baffle them with bullshit. And that's very much a Republican way of doing it. Right. And that's what they were trying to do. Now, it would be interesting, and unfortunately, everybody's skeptical of polls now, including myself. But what do the American people think? Well, I'm gonna guess. About 63% of them said Trump was guilty going in, and about 63% of them say he's guilty coming out, and about 34%, 32% maybe, said he was was innocent going in, and he said he was innocent going out. So what does that mean? You got to look at the good things. Donald Trump is not president. That's number one good. And number 2, nothing new. The Republicans gave him a pat on the back. Now, I wonder, and again, they're never going to tell you because they're politicians. I'm not so sure. Well, first of all, another interesting one, Brian, and again, just speculative, but we saw it with Liz Cheney. If you make the vote secret, would have been different. Yeah,
it would have been right. Absolutely.
Would he been convicted? No, but it would have been different. Because I think the Republicans are scared of 2 things, some of both of these, some more of one, some only of one. Number 1, I think they're scared of being outrighted in a primary. They're not, most of their districts are protected in the House and the Senate.
Or did some of them actually get in too deep? Like Hillary Clinton said, some of them were perpetrators. So they have a reason to do what they did.
That's what I'm going to get into. And there's a couple ways to look at that. Perpetrators on this, we don't know how many were involved. We know. I mean, you'd have to be very naive to think in some way that Trump wasn't involved with the Russians. I mean, in some way.
Right. Can we just stop right there? Because I want to make sure everybody understands this. Because Dave and I have discussed this before, but we have to remember, because that was one thing that Van der Veen said. That was Van der Veen or Schoen. One of them said that and we knew that there was no Russian hack. There was a Russian hack. Number 1.
Well.
And not only that, let's just remember that both the DNC and the RNCs were hacked. Now, the RNC said that, we had better control, better filter, we had better guarding of our systems. But that wasn't true. That wasn't true at all.
No,
the only thing is the Russians made a choice. Okay, and it was perfect for the Russians because now we don't know the extent of what was on that RNC server. And that's, again, if you want to talk about conspiracies, it's no conspiracy that both were hacked. That's a fact. They were both hacked. Okay?
And again, Brian,
we don't know what was in that, but I'm saying that there's always a possibility. We do know this, that whether you believe that the Russians were involved or not, and I know people on the far left are just like the people on the far right and think there isn't, but I still think there is. But
financially,
but look at the actions of the Republican Party. And again, you and I have talked about this ad infinitum. We've got Rudy Giuliani letting the Russian mob come into New York. We have Trump laundering money, selling real estate in southern Florida to Russian billionaires for twice the retail value of the homes. So automatically you're thinking money laundering. So that entire thing, that when he said that, they said we knew that there was a hoax with the hack. I could not believe that. And look, I guess Jamie Raskin and the rest of them, they had to keep going on with. I guess maybe somebody did say something to the effect that they were. I don't know. I can't really remember. But there was. I don't want to lose this because I did write this down.
No, go,
Dave. And sorry again for going in different directions.
Well, that's the way I like.
And I think I said this, but I felt there was really like a personal war that continually went between Van der Veen and Raskin, because you talked about the Raskin doctor, and then in the end Raskin came back and he was pissed. He was really pissed.
Well, I mean, I can't. I don't know either player there, but I know about.
We know one's more educated than the other.
Well, obviously. No, I think this was very personal on so many levels for Raskin. I mean, think about the timing.
Right.
Buries his son. And look,
and he witnesses the sixth too. So like he's
what I'm saying is he comes off. He hasn't really dealt with that yet, right?
Right.
He comes in. He invites his daughter and her husband in that day to witness that. And I don't. I guess maybe she. We think it's okay. She said, "Look, hon, it's going to be in the U.S. Capitol. There won't be a safer place in America." And of course, we found out that wasn't true, especially that day. And then I thought, I try to relate to people, how I would feel, if I were them. And he turned to his daughter. Finally, they were reunited. They didn't know where, she was safe. And he said, "Hun, look, this was just, this. Look, the next time you come, it won't be like that." And she said something like this: "Dad, there won't be a next time." And so I think, certainly he had a lot vested in it. I also think it some people can play the game better than others. And earlier, I think it was HLS, talked about the Senate and the games that are played there and all that. And it's true. This goes way beyond, political games at this point. And I think and I think Jamie Raskin is one, is just morally offended, right? Now, we're talking before about the motivation of these Republicans. I was saying the one is getting outrighted. The other fear, I think, actually, is they fear for their lives. They heard, some of them had to hear, and they certainly saw on tape, that the number 2 Republican in the nation was a group of people were calling to grab him and execute him by hanging. And the number 1 Republican in the nation, and that became clear, didn't do a goddamn thing. I still got to go someday when I want to go talk to my boy Tommy Tuberville there from Alabama and say, "Tommy, what the hell were you thinking?" He's kind of a doofus, right? But he did come out and
he's a very dumb man, right? Yeah.
But he did say, no, I was talking. He knew, and he was the one who said the timeline, right? So I mean, if he's going to say that, it had to be true.
And by the way, with the timeline, the Republicans had a beef about. It was Mike Lee, because Mike Lee wanted to cause. He's a real asshole. That guy. I mean, he's going up on my shit list.
He's running for president.
Right. Well, he's an asshole, and it
always has been.
Okay, it's just a weird state there. But it was interesting because he was upset about the timeline, the exact timeline, because of the time. Like it wasn't the exact minute. So So I think it was Castro who no, it was Cicilline. Or Cicilline. Forgive me, I can't remember how his last name goes. But Cicilline came in and he corrected the timeline for him. And then he argued, we're talking about Mike Lee. Lee argued because he corrected it. So he put in 226. But it wasn't good enough for Mike Lee because you don't want to throw in the evidence, after the fact. But he was just corrected. So it was such minutia that he wanted to get him. And they had to stop it for 5 or 10 minutes. It was ridiculous.
But Brian, again, that idea that I said, if you don't have defense, you don't have evidence, you don't have facts, baffle them with bullshit. Another thing is... draw up the minutia. Oh no, that wasn't 204.
Right, that was
203.
Right, yeah,
203.
And they're lying here. But you see, that's the point, that they're louder. They start pounding, and as much as that you and I know it's bullshit, the problem is that is effective with all of these people that we're talking about.
Well, Brian, again, I've got to point out something. You're saying all these people. 1/3 of America. Now,
right.
You want to know,
but they have more people representing them than they are.
That's my point.
Okay.
That's my point.
They're generating 29% of the economy. We're generating 71% of the economy.
We have 60. We have what? 60. What did I say? 67, roughly, or 63. I'm sorry, 63 something % of the people. When I say we, the Democrats. So, now, again. Let me go all the way back. Oh, you go. Yeah. Well, we needed a Senate, or we wouldn't have had they couldn't have agreed. Where South Carolina got 2, and Delaware got 2. Right. So even then there was a New Yorker, but it was 13 colonies. It became states, etc.
And who knew at the time basically how?
Well, I mean, when you think about it. The main line, Philadelphia main line, was the Wild West. I mean, we were along the coast.
Right. That's hard to think of that way, but because you couldn't move around geographically that far. That was
no. So I mean, you headed down the coast, and that was it. So we get that. Now, I mean, think about it today, though. Okay, California has 2 senators. And Idaho has 12 people, and they have 2 senators. Is that really?
Good day.
Whatever.
But isn't that? But that's the truth. They really don't have that many people.
It's ridiculous. The other thing is, and God damn it to hell, as they say. But this kind of thing I'm thinking about. We're so quick now, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be. To change the names of buildings. Anything that's racist, right? Well, Jesus Christ, the most racist institution in America was the Electoral College.
Right.
The only reason that was put in is so the South could have 3/5 of people they didn't believe were people to count as a vote.
And by the way, they did mention something in, I think it was in the closing arguments. They alluded to historic objects that have been removed. You didn't really say the statues of Robert E. Lee, the slave owner, and just killed 200,000 Union soldiers.
Now, I mean, we I think, okay, we all know how this turned out. So let's move on with, kind of a little speculation of what happens next. Well, there'll be people, and I certainly wouldn't disagree with them, that will feel vindicated and emboldened, by Trump getting off. Trump is one of those people. I mean, there's no humility in that man whatsoever. So now, what's going to happen to Donald Trump? Well, I will say this tonight: if he can navigate the court cases that he's facing in such a way that he can run for president in 2024, I'll consider for 5 seconds voting for him. I won't vote for him, but I consider, because that would be unbelievable. I can't see him doing it. And I think a lot of the Republicans, while they were scared and everything, they kind of see that coming too, because it's to their advantage to lose Trump. There's not a Republican in the Senate who wouldn't receive an advantage if Donald Trump's power were minimized. Now, what's stupid for Mike Lee and Rand Paul
Another real winner there, Rand Paul.
Well, Rand
He's worse
Paul's
than his father.
Well, Rand Paul's number one on my list, I guess. I mean, I've given up on Cruz and Hawley, so let's go with Cruz and Hawley. Both of them are deluding themselves that they're going to be, pick up the next Donald Trump. There's one person, maybe on the planet who could be the next Donald Trump because they might get their father's blessing, and that would be Ivanka. Short of that, nobody else. Certainly not Don Jr. Again, I'm going to do something. I mean, there is something. I don't mean this as a joke. There is something wrong with him. Some people are alleging cocaine. There's something wrong with him. And Eric. The last I heard about Eric, he's having a problem. Did you hear that about Eric Trump?
Nothing.
He's having a problem.
Tell us.
Yeah. He can get one leg of his pants in, but he can't figure out how to put the other leg in. I mean, he's been struggling getting because first of all, he put his pants on and had his underwear over it. I mean, Eric's not the sharpest tool in the shed. In fact, he can't even find the shed or the sharpener to be the tool. So Cruz and Hawley want him done. I mean, they want to be front runners. Lee wants him done. Paul wants him done. And McConnell, of course. The grudging. I don't. If you could admire evil, I would. I mean, he walks away. He thinks he's taking the high road. He thinks it's still his party. And he says his comments were just maybe more pathetic. Oh, I think morally he did this, and and he certainly he did it, but the Constitution prohibits us from charging him. Well, I was talking to my son tonight. Who was over in Australia, and he came up with an interesting family idea tonight. I had to holler at him, but I understand what he says. He's so disgusted. He said, well, maybe I'll just stay here. And I said, well, Michael, I understand that, but your wife Shannon wants to come home. Well, she can stay here. I said, Michael, you have kids. But I understand that feeling. I mean, Judy and I were having a discussion today. I mean, we thought about it before. Do we want to leave America? I mean, it's half joke, but half serious too.
But at this point, Dave, people in our situation, we kind of joke about that. But at this point in time, we're too old. Well, our generation's too old to really leave. Where are you going to go? It's just you might as well fight, and you really have to fight the fight.
Well, that's how I feel. But again, I'm a child of the '60s. Do I really want my grandchildren to have to fight the fight? Well, if they're going to be Americans, they're going to have to. So
and there's these people are such jerks that we have to stop. That's our job. If there's anything we do, we screwed up with the environment, we screwed up with everything else. At least let's just take care of business and stop these Republicans.
We can, except the problem is we're back to this division. Okay, Brian, I'll be surprised, and I'll do the show with you, mooning the audience the entire time. If you live in New Jersey, correct? If you get a Republican senator in the state of New Jersey in your lifetime.
Well,
it won't happen.
I don't think it's going to happen. But
it won't happen. It won't happen.
It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen.
It won't. It wouldn't matter if he were good. The South, a few people down south will vote for him, and then the North will sweep in a Democrat. Now, here's the other thing.
Gary, I'm not trying to post. I'm just showing the site. If anybody had the things come up, I'm sorry, but I'm just showing the site, and I'm only doing it briefly.
Okay, but the other thing is, what I would say is, the same thing. Do you really see, I don't know, South Dakota? We do have a Democrat senator from Montana. I don't know how that happened. But even in Virginia now, we're a blue state. I mean, it would be hard. There's just so many of us up here in the north of Virginia that we overrule the rednecks. And trust me, there are a hell of a lot of rednecks still in Virginia. So when we say, Brian, we say we have to fight them, we have to be very selective in terms of where we commit. And we really can't, you and I have talked about this. I mean, I gave money both to the Democratic organization in Kentucky and the Democratic organization in South Carolina.
Okay. I did Georgia.
Well, I did Georgia too. That's different. I'm saying, knowing pretty much full well that McConnell and Lindsay would be returned, right? So, I mean, I kind of knew that money was wasted. I gave more money, and not tons of money. I don't have tons of money, to Georgia. And that money, of course, was a better investment, right?
Right.
So
that was good money well spent. I mean, I did that. A lot of people did because we knew, and that's going to make that's going to help us the next.
So what I'm saying is, if money,
years,
and
4
a number
years.
of people have put up there, it's true. Money is power, and money is very much involved in politics, to the point that I don't even see any way we get it out, even if we turn over Citizens United, which I think should be overturned. So we're going to need to use that money very, very wisely. Now, so where's a wise use of the money? Maybe if they get a good candidate, Texas, right? North Carolina, keeping Georgia, maybe Florida, depending on who the candidates are. Yes, he does, Chad. That's absolutely correct. Actually, that's his house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually my living room. Picture my living room, but I put it on blurs.
No, Brian.
I'm not in my living room. That's a green screen,
No.
but that's my living room.
No, but what that is, Chad, just to let you know, actually, Brian is secretly a Trump admirer. So he did go down and get pieces of the wall and then ask Donald to autograph him. So if you look right next to that orange thing, that's a piece of the wall with Donald's name on it.
The ISO view. I think he said the ISO. Yeah, I figured it was ISO, Chad. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. But the idea
this was the wall. That's what he's talking about, right?
Well, that is too.
Actually, normally I just have the green screen with just the wall, but I actually like it cut out a bit. It's just
you know what though? Again,
I like the dimensional aspect.
I hope you don't mind. I called Roger Waters, from Pink Floyd, and said, "Roger, check your wall." And he comes back and said, "Something's missing." I said, "I'll tell you where it is." That's
well, I'd like you to get your green screen because I like to have some fun with that. I mean, you have a good background, Dave, but I think a green screen would be kind of cool. And he has one, folks.
Now, wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Let me explain why I don't use that green screen. And Brian, you may say that I'm lying if that's true. Yes, all roads do lead to Wall Street politically. HLS. One time we were getting ready to go on the show, and I did have the green screen. And so what I did is take a young lady that I'm very fond of. She was one of the first people.
I remember that now. Yes, I do.
To do that, and who I'm very, very fond of. Her name is, her stage name is Stormy Daniels. And I had Miss Daniels behind me. And Mr. Weinstein wasn't really paying attention. He looked up and he started saying, "You can't have that, you can't have that." And I thought it was very tasteful.
Dave, can I tell this story? And I won't tell you if you don't want me to. When Ronnie and I went down to visit you, and you were sitting there in the living room, and you're talking about Stormy Daniels in front of your wife Judy. And said, "Can I say it? It's not bad."
I don't care.
Dave said, "Look," he said, "I love Judy very, very, very much. She's everything to me. However, if Stormy Daniels asked me to be with her, I would have to leave my wife and go to Stormy Daniels."
Well, I mean, come on, I mean,
now he's joking, but it's just kind of fun.
No, I'm not. Okay, no. Now I'll get banned because I'm being sexist. But
okay.
No, I mean, all kidding aside, I mean, there are reasons to like her. I mean, think about it. She was anti-Trump before it was popular. I mean, now granted, she had reasons,
she still,
and she slept with him. I mean, all that, but
she's still into
I understand.
Getting her face everywhere. Come on.
15 minutes of fame. Again, that comes back to Stephen Miller.
If you should have any heroines, so to speak, I would say
let's look at that. That's a great...
AOC would be your. First of all,
no.
She's just
I'm going to go
a more complete human being.
I'm going to go with all four members of the squad in their own different ways. AOC is the face of the squad, right? And some she took it on herself. Also,
I go with Max. I mean, honestly, Maxine Waters, she's tremendous.
Oh.
She's always been there. And at first, years ago, I wasn't too sure about her, but she's great. I mean, she doesn't take any shit. I mean, she had all the death threats before any of them had death threats.
Well, the other thing that I think is interesting, or I look at it sometimes, I think we go through, or I did. I shouldn't say we did. You go through stages. I mean, my family, my father was apolitical. He thought they were all, complete asshole jerks. My mother came from a long line of Republicans. She was a Republican. But back when you could be a decent Republican, I mean, she was an Eisenhower Republican. My uncle was a pretty huge fundraiser and a kind of a player, if you will, a limited player nationally in the Republican Party. But this idea, of what the Republican Party has become, I actually had my cousin, who no longer speaks to me, his loss, not mine. He actually said and you were talking about heroes and heroines and all this and how that can change. He said before he stopped all contact with me, he said, your mother, would be turning over in her grave, if she saw where you are now. And I said, no,
I don't think
no,
that doesn't sound like what you about your mother.
He said because my mother was a Republican. Okay.
Right, but from what you've explained to me, if your mother was around today, that doesn't sound right.
No, it isn't. Well, that's most of my point. So many of the Republicans just think an R is an R. You know what I mean? Forever. There's no way that she would do that. And I said, nah, cuz I said, actually, she would be disappointed in you.
Says Steve Schmidt.
That was the last thing. Well, I want to mention Mr. Steve Schmidt tonight. That's a little disturbing. What happened? He's now resigned.
Right, with the Lincoln Group.
And it's probably the right stand from what I don't know all the details, but it sounded like there was a defense of a certain gentleman who was doing some very untoward things toward young men. And Steve and some others defended him. That's why you kind of wait until the jury's in. But I always find it interesting that it's the Steve Schmidts and the Al Frankens that do the right thing. It's never this other side. But get back to what you were saying. Even if you take, let's look at the Republicans. So you got the 7, right, who voted one way. They came through. Probably the one, the one that's been most inconsistently consistent is Mitt Romney. And we're so desperate for heroes. I think, we make them that way. Like I said, I never really understood, what the former UN ambassador who wants to run for president, Miss Nikki, had in mind. She certainly came out very strongly, too late to make any difference. And so, why aren't there any heroes? If there, you could say, well, yeah, there's not enough. No, if there were enough heroes in the Republican Party, Donald Trump would have been impeached. Well, he was impeached twice. He would have been convicted, in the Senate the first time.
Dave, I want to get. Yes. Can I get a comment from you on this too? This was.
Sure.
Real quick, and this for everybody here. This is from the Palmer
He's
Report.
He's behind bars.
The Palmer Reports. It's considered a very left-wing site, but I like Bill Palmer, and sometimes he has people in with analysis, usually very, very short. But, obviously today it came up, and I was excited because it looked like they were going to call witnesses. But he said that they haven't. I'm sorry, I don't have you on here, Dave. Yes, I do. He basically said, let's not jump to conclusions because it looked like some of these witnesses cooled out, got really cold about this. He believes that they didn't cave. It was a very short article, but basically what it was saying is that we don't know the whole story about what was going on behind the scenes. Do you think, because it did seem like it was going to go that way when Senator Whitehouse was saying, let's call the witnesses. Do you think things were going on behind the scenes with that, or
no?
It looked like they were going to go that way.
Well, I think everything was on the table, and okay, you say, Dave, you talk about your parents all the time. Well, I learned a lot from them. I wish I'd paid more attention to it earlier in my life, and as I've mentioned before, my father was a professional gambler. That's what he did. He had a regular job, but he was a professional gambler, and he said sometimes it's better to just fold than to continue on. And I think that's part of what the House managers understood. Look, let's assume for a moment, which is a great leap for me, but let's assume for a moment that there truly is one God, whoever that God is, whoever God's it is. And the one God came into the Senate and testified against Trump. Wouldn't have made any difference. It really wouldn't have. It wouldn't have. So why am I not angry? I mean, a lot of people on the left are. Well, I understand that, but there's a more important thing, believe it or not, Brian, right now, than Donald Trump. we have to, we're going to be struggling with the political virus, I believe, for the rest of my lifetime. I mean, and it's nothing new. It surfaces, it goes away, it surfaces, it comes back.
But there's been nothing like this, though. There's been nothing like
this. In my lifetime,
not in our lifetime, Dave. You even admitted
I don't know, Brian. Nixon.
It was bad back then. It was really, really bad.
Yeah, but, and so I mean,
we weren't going to lose a democracy.
Yes, we were. In that sense, the difference was here's the only two differences. One was that Republican senators, Barry Goldwater being the lead, went over there and said, Dick, here's the deal. You got 2 votes for acquittal in the Senate, and I'm not one of them. Okay. And then the other thing is, while Dick Nixon was a dick, okay,
it was so appropriate. I mean, it did fit his name.
But also, what happens is Nixon realized, unlike Trump, Nixon, and again, Nixon wasn't in his right mind at the very end. He also went nuts, literally. I mean, he was so bad that they didn't give him the nuclear codes for a while at the end. And I bet you Donald Trump didn't get the nuclear codes in January either. Well, we may never know that, or we may know it, way down the road.
Probably take 30 years from now.
But so when people say that, I mean, I'm not so sure. I think the outcome was different, but Nixon certainly
didn't Raskin basically say this is what has happened here? I guess we're talking about the Capitol. There's no precedent.
That's true. No, that part is true. Okay, I was looking at what Trump, up to that point. Now, of course,
I've never seen it. I mean, you had the advantage. You were older. You would know more about Nixon. Though I did know about Nixon, but there is
nothing.
This feels worse.
It is worse because of January 6th. All right. I mean, it does make it worse. But politically, to say, well, so I'm saying, this is worse because of that. Now, again, I'm not trying to gild this. And Brian and anybody out there, please, I should find this out, but I'm lazy from time to time. I've still never seen a number, even a speculative number, of two figures, which I think are extremely important. They would be guesstimates. How many people actually illegally entered the Capitol? Could they piece that together? I mean, they got a lot of video. Could they get a rough idea? I don't know. True, Gary, you're absolutely right. Wasn't in bed with our enemies. Right. All this is true. But again, he still threatened the Constitution. I mean, so is this worse? Yeah, I suppose so. But the
sounds
other
like
side,
a concession speech there.
What? No.
I'm just playing with you, Dave. I'm just playing.
I know you are. But I mean, I mean, what just bothers me?
Well, let's put it this way: your life. I mean, I notice, and I want to speak for you, Dave. But your opinion towards Republicans, at least the last year, has changed completely. I mean, I know you didn't like certain things back then, but
well,
and I have. Again, I was only 8 in '68, but I still watched the stuff. I still remember the convention.
Yeah, about that. I mean, if I change, I've changed so much that if I saw someone and I knew they were Republican and they were suffering a heart attack, I'd probably try to save them. But short of that, I hope they avoid me, and I'm going to avoid them.
Also, I want to say one other thing too, Dave.
Yes, Fed, what you put up there.
You again, and I respect you because you were a teenager when all this was going on. Actually, a little bit older at some point in time. But I have to say this: had I been 3 or 4, it wouldn't matter because I can't remember Kennedy's assassination at all. I was in a walker at the time. Didn't remember that, but I do remember the convention in Chicago. And when you're 8 years old, and I never forgot this because we were visiting some of my parents' friends, and they were all in a different room, and I was alone in that room watching that television of the people getting beaten in the streets. And when you're alone and you're 8 years old and you're used to like your dad taking to the Phillies game and trying to make my life as simple as I can as a child, because my dad knew that when I got past 12 or 13, life was going to change. But at least my parents did like the Soviet thing. Like Soviet kids grew up in a very, very nice atmosphere until they got to be around 12. Then it was all off the charts. But when you experience watching something like that at the age of 8, it hits you. I mean, and I'm not saying that it seemed worse to me than it did to you at the time, because you were 17 at the time. But there is something to say about being 8 years old and then watching. And anybody who's 8 years old and has to see that shit from January 6th. Now I'm wondering, these students are not even mine right now.
Oh, Brian, you're right.
How that affected them.
Well, and what is, we now have the luxury of history of looking back on the period 1968 to 1974 and realizing how it turned out. But, we didn't know how we were living it then.
Yeah, you don't know at the time. And that's the whole point. You still don't know at the time.
And now we certainly don't know with this. I think your point is so well taken. I think it's a point, obviously, you're still an educator and I'm a former educator. So I think we think of things like that a lot. But I think not only the horror of watching it, but how do you turn, it's being done in Australia as we speak. My 2 grandchildren, they're political already, which I'm very, proud of. They're with us. They're on the right side of divided we stand. Not so much even through propaganda, although both their parents are that way and they know their grandpop is, but because they're looking at it and saying it's not right. But how do you sit down and explain to them, that sometimes bad people do bad things and they walk away, and that includes bad things like sending the group to attack the Capitol.
Right. If you're in a minority, in fact, I found it was kind of weird. There were a couple minorities there, which it just boggles my mind. Or any Jews there, and there were, like this whole one person was like talking about, Trump loves Israel, but at the same time, there's 2 guys with Auschwitz shirts in front of her. But anyway, just thinking about it, especially, young Jewish kids, young African American kids, and they see that. They see that, and then they hear what was said to the cops. When you're seeing those visuals, you say, "Oh my God!" Like, I didn't realize it was going to be. We were just getting over some not getting over, but it was going in the right direction until you see this. You say, "What the hell?"
Obviously, young people have kind of 3 directions they can take. There's actually 4. One, they could say that's fine. And there are some young people, white, have been already indoctrinated into it. That was probably applauding it as patriots. Okay, so that group is lost already. You saw that some people actually there were young kids, not inside the Capitol, but there were young kids always at these things. So that's a minority, I think. Mm-hmm. Secondly, you've got kids that are just going to turn off to it, and there. But if you're let's say if you're a young black man. A young black child, I shouldn't say man, even a young black woman. You really only have 2 things, and I think we have to understand as the white majority that we can't be that judgmental on which way they go. One is to say that's wrong, and we're going to work within the system to change it, and the other is say it's not changeable. So so one side is almost the Martin Luther King, not the nonviolence, but and the other is Malcolm X, although they were both kind of changing their position. So it's really not fair to do that, but it's kind of burned in our mind that by any means necessary. What I was thinking along those lines, I'll be honest with you, when you look at American situation today, especially coming off 4 years of Trump and the people who took over the Capitol and the races, I can't imagine a couple things. One, I couldn't imagine if I were a Black American sending a child off. And my child now is 47 years old. But, they never stop being your child. And realizing there's a good chance no matter what your child does, that may be the last time you see him simply because of his skin color. You look at that. And look, do we need police? Absolutely. Do we need good police? Yeah, more. And we just don't have enough of them. Or I don't know if it's we don't have enough of them or we have too many that are bad.
But I think this was a good idea, Gary. I like your idea because I think, I assume he's talking about the January 6th. Because you're going to have to fight them at their own level. And that will bring the base out. But, the point came up that, I think it was on, I forget if it was CNN or MSNBC, but the discussion it was actually on Bill Maher. That was it. somebody from the Daily Cause said, you know what? You don't even need to have any type of commercials because in America, everybody knows, which side they're on. It didn't change any of the votes. And there may be something to that. However, we saw what Stacey Abrams did, but I still am a firm believer, and Dave and I have discussed the influence of popular culture, that yes, we may have to do that. You may have to get people out. Now, we may have to manipulate the other side. And that's where you're going to need like some type of Sigmund Freud out there. And that's another show. But I think in general, you're right, Gary. I think that type of video is going to have to be used for us.
I would agree with Gary 100% on that one. Also, you were saying earlier how much I've changed, and I have changed.
Definitely. You have, Dave, you have in the last year, not that you weren't rebellious, and I say rebellious the way you were, you're the same person, but
Brian, you got to learn in life or you fall apart. I entered opposed to Trump, writing against Trump, speaking against Trump I could ever see. But, I still started with the idea, well, it is America. And, some people are going to vote for him. And, I don't know if I was the most stunned that he won, but I was certainly up there. And then I said, okay, no honeymoon. But I still gave the people the honeymoon of voting for him. I still think actually, I'm in a minority in this, I think, among liberals, but I'm fine with being in the minority. I think there were some reasons if you weren't a liberal, if you weren't a Democrat, to vote for Donald Trump. And what were they? There was a lot of hatred toward Hillary Clinton, undeserved, but was there. I think there was a lot of people who said Trump is a successful businessman. He wasn't, but they believed that. There were a lot of people who felt, and I've talked to some early, who felt that Trump could go in there with no ties and, could be his own person, which indeed he could have, but he chose not to.
Here's some news breaking, then sort of some historic news.
What was that?
This is a nice comment here from Robin Rosner. It's a little bit of history here tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what, Robin? I certainly would say that. One of the differences, I think, let me just say how I think this. Richard Nixon was mentally unfit to be president, and Donald Trump was mentally unfit to be president. But the difference was
physically fit to go to Vietnam.
Well, he wasn't, but that's it. What I'm saying is, Nixon. I think the most pathetic thing about Richard Nixon, I might even mention on the show. I guess it's as close as I can get to sympathy for Richard Nixon. He loved when he was young, he loved Pat, and he wanted Pat, and Pat really didn't want him, and he wanted her so badly. He had worked and he had a car at Whittier, the campus. And so he would drive Pat and her date around just to be close to Pat.
Wow. That is something.
Yeah. And later the man, very insecure, was raised in the Quaker church. I assume, obviously rejected that. And he had this, very much like Trump, he had this false idea of what it is to be a man. He was very well read, Richard Nixon, believe it or not. Somewhat cultured, but, it was a man's culture. And he would sit there, and so he took up swearing, it just got deeper and deeper into this male bullshit, which Trump got a hold of. But, I think when I say, so by the point when he left the White House, his insanity had done him in. But I think he later on never really, acknowledged it to that point, but realized he was somewhat to blame for his actions. Donald Trump will never believe he's anything else other than a victim. He will never apologize for anything. As I mentioned earlier in the program, to me, the most offensive thing, not the surprising thing, is the fact of the few remarks that I've seen, that he's been able to get out without his Twitter and Facebook feed. Like I said, MAGA is just beginning. This continues to be the greatest witch hunt, in American history. Does he believe it or not? I don't really care anymore. Again, though, what is important, you were saying before, how do kids react going forward? What Gary said is a great point. You certainly
And that we have to be careful with, because you don't want to be like them as far as how them.
Well, I don't think
right in that one clip, they're like right from one music to the next within 1 second.
I'm not. You don't need to be them. The difference is
something like the Lincoln Project. You have to do something like that.
The Republican Party doesn't deal with the truth. Those videos are true. You don't have to edit them. That is what happened. Now the question is, yeah, I know. The question becomes, what do people make of it, and is it dangerous? A lot of ink has been given to your girlfriend from Georgia, Miss Taylor Greene, right?
Oh Marjorie God, she's had a busy,
well, all of a sudden,
romantic life.
Well, Trump's back in the limelight, but there was a lot of soul searching down here because the media still doesn't know how to handle this new world. I don't know if I would as I was there. If you don't print what the crazies do, are you covering it up? And if you do print what the crazies do, are you helping and giving them a megaphone to get more crazies? And that's the nice thing about those tapes, especially the inside tapes are taken off the cell phones. You have to make any comment, just say, here it is. Vote. What was the final vote? 57-43.
Yes.
Only 7 Republicans. Do you really want those people still controlling? Now, unfortunately, there's 74 million people minus whatever who were fine with Donald Trump. And that's another figure. We'll never know, or, we won't know it till the next election. But I said something earlier, and I meant to have you comment on it. I believe this, that, Donald Trump is uniquely bad, if you will. I don't see anybody stepping in his shoes. The closest would be if Oprah gets possessed by the devil. She has that kind of following. She's not. Do you see anybody who's the successor, or is
successor to whom?
To Trump, not as a president, but taking over his crowd? I don't. I said Ivanka maybe, but there's going to be something before I do that. There's something I would find interesting. There's Ivanka wants to be political. They're in Florida now. There's rumblings, whether she will do that or not, that she would run for Senate against Marco Rubio. That would be an interesting race. But anyway, let's get back.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of that. Obviously you see the loudest one right now. The people that would want it. Well, you mentioned Mike Lee, and I have a real problem with Mike Lee. Okay. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz. I don't. He's just. I think he wants to become president. I really do. But
he can't be. No, but can he take? He's not going to take over the Trump crowd.
Well, he'll try, but he can't now.
No,
he'll try.
I'll tell you.
Rubio, no, he can't. But he's such a lackey. I can't stand that. I can't stand any of them. Hawley's always been mentioned, but
I'm not saying, Brian. I'm not saying
I would. They would come from Congress. Somebody from Congress would try to. I would think Jim Jordan would be the guy.
Could be, but I don't think he has that power either.
Well, like I say, you'd be surprised.
Donald Trump is president for one reason: his time on reality TV.
And his timing. Well, actually, not even his timing. I shouldn't say that.
No, his time. I'm saying he was a national figure. You can talk about all his buildings and all that, but it wasn't that. It was on TV. So the only.
But don't you think it was more just? At the base level, wasn't about all the crap people used to say about Obama. It was about the fact that we had a black president, and it just burned the hell out of him. All that.
But I'm still going to say I'm still going to say again. I'm playing the game that you can't play. 17 Republicans run. I think Hillary would have beaten 16 of them. I don't. It wasn't in the cards. And he's also and he's also Hispanic. But I think I don't know.
He's Cuban. His father was like a criminal too, or something like that.
Well, whatever. If Cruz kisses Donald fast enough, Donald will bless him. I'm not sure, Chad. It makes sense. There'll be a lot of people down there kissing Donald's ring, and probably his protuberance in front. And certainly his backside, trying to get that. I'll tell you, Nikki Haley. I think, Gary, that's exceptionally smart. I know you play the horses and do pretty well at it. I think you are a good handicapper.
Well, how about if it gets out of control, though? If the Republican Party gets more out of
Well,
control than they are, it goes
I'm
far
saying-
to the right. Now
saying-
you've got anything could happen.
Here's the name. There are two names that I think, and neither one of them are
Somebody will
politics.
out Trump Trump. You know.
No, that we talked about that. There's nobody on the horizon yet. That's some 14-year-old kid genius who's looking at this and breaking it down, and will be there in what would that make him, 21 years or whatever he can run for president. Two names, one whom wants to be it, I think. The other I don't think does, but doesn't. Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson. Now,
I forgot about that. Yeah, well, it could happen.
Well, so what I'm saying is, I think Tucker does want it, and there's some indication that he does. But I think Hannity, certainly, would Hannity get the blessing of Donald Trump? I think so. Does Hannity have the status? Now, is Fox News, though, I think is not. Fox News is going to have its problems too, because it's outrighted already, right? With
they still
Newsmax, Newsmax. I mean, they don't have the field anymore. I mean, the field is going to be somewhat divided, right?
I still think that Fox will steamroll the rest, and once this is clears, wouldn't matter. Remember, there's going to be you can't have, like with MSNBC and CNN, they have to split their viewership, or at least it goes back and forth.
Right.
The conservatives always have that one big one, Fox, and right now it still is.
Well, it is, but guess what? Look at their demographics. Their demographics are almost exclusively 65 and older. Look at what, because Newsmax and, a couple of the others, what they're doing is they're doing it right. They don't have to, they're new, and you look online. The real power, Brian, with young people coming up. Do you realize a lot of young people don't watch television?
Right, they're watching video games. That's what they're talking about in the chat.
Well, no, and they also watch, things on. You'll get their news from Facebook, or whatever. And there's another name. Now, this is, Trump did a number of bad things, and one is, which a lot of people doesn't think some bad, but I did. I think, unfortunately, as bad as politics can be, a president has to have some idea of politics. And the only way you get an idea of that is to be in it. But let's throw in a couple other names around. Mark Zuckerberg.
Where does he land, though? Or is there a third party, too? That's...
Or does Jeff Bezos just say, okay, I've become the $300 billion man. I'm going to take $200 billion and make myself president. Does that work? Now, Bezos, I don't even know that we know, exactly what his politics are. People say he's to the left because he owns the Washington Post. I don't know. But, I am, when I say, the more I think about that, I've been thinking about that, who could do it? Hannity, maybe. As I say, I'm down.
I wouldn't be surprised. Either way, in a certain sense, Hannity was kind of like a vicarious president as it was, because he shared the same, they were always working together.
That's right. And what's the point? The point I'm making is those two, Ivanka would get the blessing of her father, and Hannity.
It's a terrible one too, Anthony. It's a terrible channel.
Oh yeah.
Rudy's just freaking nuts.
They're just, and there's another book I want to see, the truth. What the hell happened to Rudy Giuliani? And yet there's a number of people that suggest he's no different than he ever was.
Right. They say that when he got rid of the mob, like I said, he just substituted and put in the Russian mob.
And the other thing is, and this doesn't justify it, but I don't know of anyone, including myself on this channel, who plays in the leagues of the money that is there for politics. You could argue all day, does money change you or not? I'm going to submit that it does. I believe that it does. And in politics, there's never enough money, right? Always need more because you're going to spend more. Elections now, look at what was spent on that special election in Georgia. Now, Democrats, as I say, that was money wisely spent. Can you imagine if it was, what would that make it? What is it? It's 50-50 now? That would
Right,
make
and
it,
as
what,
they
50?
mentioned last night from the guy from the Daily Cause, is that Trump outspent the Democrats in Georgia, even though it was a great amount, and he lost. So the money was like, and in other places it was just the opposite, and we
Right.
lost. So it's money's not always the thing.
No, it's not. But you certainly, you certainly, unfortunately, you need, Now, are there things that are antiquated? Maybe in, there's talk that television, and I think there's some truth to that. You're going to get anywhere with television ads because the audience is very much, segmented. And I don't watch a whole lot of TV at all, but sometime late at night, or especially, you see certain kind of ads that you'll never see, that's for young people for erectile dysfunction. And in the morning, it's for old people, with erectile dysfunction or ages. And so, I mean, it's all built into numbers and all that. So what I find interesting with the media, though, Brian, and you kind of said it before, that's another thing that's completely changed. Forget about the Walter Cronkites. We've talked about that before. But basically, if you wanted to have TV news back in 1968, you had three options: NBC, ABC, and CBS. Now you have, I don't know if it's hundreds, but you certainly have a lot of options on cable, national news. And then you can bypass all that
Go to
and use
YouTube.
Twitter, Facebook.
YouTube is a big one too for news.
Yeah, well, it's huge. Now, what a lot of people forget, though, and that's a big issue right now that you're seeing, news organizations are, kind of waking up the fact that Facebook, they don't have a news operation, right? They just
Not
grab
yet.
everything. No, I was just saying they grab everything and everybody else has,
Right.
and they should be paid.
But the Amazon of news,
Well, I mean, look,
a lot of people get their news. A lot of people, even us, when we start reading the article, you get the article first before you find out from Brian Williams what happened. It's I've experienced that too. I mean, I know you read, Dave, but it's still.
I mean, I mean, there's two reasons. Again, not that I'm smarter than anybody, but I realized I stopped watching TV for the news. Oh, I guess. Well, this says by right after Watergate, so by 75, simply because that's got a different way of doing it, the sound bites, and there are actors and all this that are there. I mean, they're not news people necessarily in the old way. I'll believe that when they have a 250-pound woman and some skinny man who looks like he just escaped from somewhere. They're all good looking. They get better looking and all that. That's not a jealousy thing. But it's just there. But we've got all these sources now where to get our news. So everything is kind of bifurcated, just like we are in terms of the country. Now, it was interesting. I meant to write it down, Brian. I didn't. Maybe we can sue, if I read this correctly. There's a documentary coming out, and it has a "Divided We Stand." Okay,
Right.
And basically, it's a representation of 402 years of blacks being second-class citizens, and I think that's. I mean, I've said it all along. I'll say it to my dying day that blacks have been horribly mistreated in America, and every white person, even the scummiest, has the benefit of white privilege. Your favorite young man, out in the Midwest there, Kyle, certainly shows that there's.
He's another one, and he got away with murder already.
I'm saying two standards. We don't need. I mean, we know that, right? What I find interesting, though, is maybe there are some white people now, not only understanding that, but understanding what it's like. This ruling. I mean, the majority of Americans wanted. Well, no, Gary. I think what Gary meant, and that's not the DSW as our place. It's a dance. It's a place where young ladies gyrate. For Gary, there, especially for Gary.
What? I didn't know that. Is this breaking news?
No, DWS. He looks like Divided We Stand. That's a different thing. or what is it? DSW. That's a shoe place, right?
Okay, I didn't know what.
No, that wasn't that. Well, yeah. And if that were true, Gary, I like that. It was kind of funny. Boy, are you in a bad place getting the news from the two of us. But what I was going to say is, as the clock ticks down, to sum up kind of a little bit, I'm not.
Do you want to answer this one at all, or do you want to leave that for next week, or what?
Biden won't feel
this whole Julian Assange thing.
Can I? Well,
more
you know what?
I think more problems with Sweden. It's still an issue.
Well, here's what I really, I should, certain things you should. I really haven't followed that story as well as I should.
Or I still think there's still, I think at the Secret Service level, and I mean in the CIA, there's still some issues with his connections with the Russians,
and that's another thing that the one I do know better. In fact, actually, when I was at the museum,
I don't know for myself. I'm just saying there was that connection.
So I just think sometimes it's better to say I don't know, and I don't. I'm not familiar with that. The one that I am more familiar with is Edward Snowden, and I argue with one of my friends. Have vociferously argued with one of my friends who's in cybersecurity here in D.C., and he thinks that Snowden should be shot as a traitor. And I think, Snowden, why you can fault him for running away and not serving his prison sentence, did a service. I would think whistleblowers in the end do more of a service than harm. And not getting back to Julian, there's some question of where was he fit in. So let me sum up some of what I heard tonight on the show as the clock ticks down. Number one, we got a decision. Not an unexpected decision, but one that certainly isn't the one that I think was best for America, based on that. Number two, we get word from Trump that he is definitely more emboldened tonight than he was last night. Does that make him more dangerous? I suppose, in a way. Are there enough people who look at the fact that Trump got off, as also justifying what the domestic terrorists did? That comes down to how the domestic terrorists are treated. I would say, there's some murderers there, right? There's some murderers there because a policeman was murdered. You got to treat them. You've got to treat them with the utmost. You have to sentence them to the utmost to keep that down. So what are the takeaways that I took from this? Democrats did a better job. I certainly saw more people, as I said earlier, on the House management team that I think would make good senators if they should choose to run. Disaster warning system today. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. And so, as I'll go to bed tonight. I don't know how, the rest of our family will feel. They're not tempted. You always hope, Bri. You started the show with that. You always kind of hope. But again, this will be my parting comment. It's a war. It's an ongoing war. If you look at it in the terms of good and evil, it's a war that began when we either, as I said before, the war between good and evil began when we emerged from the caves or we walked out of the sea, however we got here. That's not going away. If you don't look at it as good versus evil, if you just look at an ideology, we're now so far apart that there's no way, I don't understand. I'm not going to convince anybody of a Republican. So I'm fine with that. I'm not going to convince them to change their minds if they're still with Trump. Some Republicans will change their own minds. And so, the battle goes on. Now, one thing I never did answer, Brian, I meant to, and I didn't, we're talking about the idea of not calling witnesses. Right. And I think why that was a wise decision. First of all, there wasn't anything to gain. But the other thing is, we got it right now. We got to work on, getting this pandemic under control. There's not much we can do about Trump right now. That's in the hands of the courts, right? And the hands of prosecutors. But we, and we're a long ways away from that. So on that happy note, I'm going to say, the one virus, the political virus, it still continues. But that's, we haven't lost that battle yet. I'm not sure where we are with the virus called of the corona.
Dave, well, I appreciate you coming on tonight again, and I think you ended it well for us. I do want to say a couple things, but again, thank you, Dave. And we're going to be back next week, and I hope everybody please share, please subscribe, and please become a member of Divided We Stand on Facebook. We're still trying to expand. We're not monetized, so we're not looking for anything. We're just trying to actually help, which is going to lead me into my final comment, and that is, I always go back to the Russian authors for some reason. Like today I was reading Dostoevsky a little bit, and Tolstoy. Tolstoy said something to the effect that there's obviously good and there's evil in the world, and because there is evil, those who are good will be required to fight it, and you might have to fight a lifetime, but you have to stick your neck out. You have to do it. And Dave and I were discussing, and we do this frequently on the phone, but we discuss about the two things that are guaranteed in life. We talked about it again today. We're guaranteed that there's going to be your birth and there's going to be the death. Anything in between, it can be complete horror. Who knows? It really is if that Alan Watts thing where before you're born you're ready to push a button. There's all these buttons for all these different times, and there's one that says who knows, and you push it. But that's really what happens in our lives, and sometimes you get the gravy and sometimes you get the gristle, like Joni Mitchell used to say. And it's come to the point now at my age, and I'm 60, going on 61, that it really is kind of like a Tolstoyan thing that sometimes you're just gonna have to give up with expectations, just like we started this show. Is that you have these great expectations. You wanted to be this, when you're a kid, you wanted to be a professional basketball player. Then you realize you weren't 6'2", or now you're not 7 foot tall, or you can't run the 100-yard dash in 9 seconds, or whatever it is. You part with the illusions. And if anything, I think David and I have parted with the illusion that somehow this is going to work out. And we actually felt this way long before what happened on the 6th, and certainly long before what happened today. But there's that little 8-year-old in me that still says, like, God, maybe they will change their votes, And then the votes came in today, as you saw it for yourself, and they still went the other way. And I think it's just a certain maturity and a certain thing that you have to say, that I'm going to have to be willing to give it up, to part with the illusions, to give up the expectations. But you can't be a nihilist, but you have to fight the good fight. And sometimes you do drown, and sometimes really bad things happen. And I don't have to tell you that, but like Tolstoy said, it's your duty, it's my duty to fight the good fight. And there's nothing left, and that's I think we're Dave and I have been going with this, and I'm sure you agree, Dave. It's just, this is the way we're going to end our lives. There's not going to be, that lottery's not coming in for us. There'll be one to win it, but it's not coming in. So now you all have to get your affairs in order. I hate that expression because it's that last expression. You better get your affairs in order. But it's kind of like what Guy McPherson kind of said. He didn't say it word for word, but it's like, we are all dead men and women on leave anyway. So,
boy, that's optimistic, but true.
Well, but it's freeing, Dave, isn't it?
No, I don't.
It's very freeing, because once you know that you're going to battle, that it's what has to be done. Because,
but Brian, I wasn't going to say anything, but your closing was really brilliant.
I have to have you.
No, your closing was. Normally I joke, but I don't.
Okay.
I think your closing was brilliant, and I think it's just this simple. You do have to when you fight whether you call it wrongness or badness or evil, because my view of life, it's grace under pressure. And the one illusion that I've lost, over the years, very early, maybe in the 60s, you don't have to win the battle. I mean, it's nice to win the battle, right? It's nice even to win the war. I realized early that the war is going to go on forever. But that doesn't mean you stop fighting it, but you still have that illusion. Maybe this is the battle we'll win. And if you don't, you fight the next one and try to use what you didn't do there or what wasn't done correctly there.
They don't deserve to get the easy pass, these people.
Unfortunately,
and Raskin did put, as much as he lost, he still won. He got that shot in with that guy and said, "Look, if you think you had a bad day, look at us on the 6th."
And
what a great cut that was. When I heard that just made my day yesterday.
Unfortunately, and Brian, the one thing you and I have kind of gone round and round about. At one point, you too have changed, which is a good thing. I don't mean it's a bad thing. And I think early on, even in the beginning, maybe of this show, when we started, you looked at, there was a possibility that Republicans could actually be shamed.
Right. I had that. Well, yeah. I mean, because I do that in my head all the time. I want to shame every one of them.
No, but Brian, they don't react to shame.
Right. You said you can't shame them.
I said that earlier, and I'm not because I'm right, but just say the other one is you certainly took out my illusion, which was somewhat ego, but somewhat, involved with words. I honestly thought, that, if you presented something logically and factually, that people would be capable of understanding it and maybe change. And I'll leave with this. The main reason, whether you believe good and evil or whatever, the main thing about Divided We Stand, we have a large group of Americans who do not view reality the way it should be viewed. And how are you going to argue with their reality? You don't. You vote them out. You take pride. If you go to Thanksgiving dinner and calling them out, they might hit you with the turkey bone. But you just can't. This idea of I'm just going to go my shell, you can't do it.
Right. And by the way, I think if you, I know we have to end here, but if you look at evolution as it is, it's not survival of the fittest. It's obviously those organisms and those animals and plants who can deal with the environment best. And it may be that this environment is pretty evil and they're going to win. But they didn't really leave anything good with the planet. I mean, if we are, in a way, as Dave mentioned, if there were this guy, I think we differ, but I think we're kind of on the same place that people who are religious aren't going to like what I'm going to say, but we are, as far as we know, we're the gods, because we're not a strong God, but if we are the most intelligent thing there, then we are responsible to be the God, because as far as we know, we are the most intelligent. Now, it's not effective right now, and as Dave said, the logic didn't work, but that doesn't take us away from the responsibility, the intelligent people, that eventually we may have to do something. I'm not saying going full General Sherman, but at some point the intelligent person must say, okay, look, this is like an infection here, and it's got to be treated like one, because you let Hitler go too long. I'm not saying we're there yet,
right,
but you come. Well, I hope you come back next week, everybody. Come back in a year,
and we'll see where we are.
We'll see where we are. There might be a point where you might hear Dave say, I think General Sherman really had it right. Let's do it, and or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't live like that. If I had been the president of the United States and they were starting to take over, I'd shoot the thing straight up and let it come down, because I don't want to have that happen. So that was pretty nasty what he just said, but you understand what I meant by that. Okay. Sometimes we're going to have to make, and even I think Schumer kind of alluded to that, because he said something to the effect, if you want to go this route, it may happen to you one day. Now he wasn't saying that we were going to do anything, but he just said, just understand that it could happen. So anyway, we do have to end. Dave, again, thank you very much. And
someday, Brian, my biggest hope, as much as I love doing this show, as much as I like the family, that at least one Saturday I'll call and say, "Hey, Brian, I can't make it. I actually have something to do. I can't even get the vaccine down here yet. Judy is getting it, and
I
I'm
can't
not
get it yet. I
know.
can't get it yet. So,
Well, but it's just funny. So anyway, my thing to everyone, thank you for watching. Obviously, we say it.
and
but we do mean it.
join, subscribe, and
Yeah.
and by the way, chat, as in a chat, I think it was you and said that Roar Media is on, the dive is on tonight. I have to actually call a Trump cousin, and I don't know what the hell his problem is. I won't be watching, but. And I'm not going to say any more than that. I will not be able to watch tonight. Dave, I don't know if you're going to be watching The Dive. That was last week's show.
No, I honestly, I've always liked places that were called dives, and so I would prefer to go to one. I have one right within 800 steps of here, and I can't get there, so I'm not going to do anything with the dive until I can go back to one.
But his offer was still out there. Dave says he will be glad to have a debate with him if they would like.
Oh God, yes. If anybody knows them, I would love that. I'll go on their show. They can come on our show. We can find neutral ground. I do not care. That would.
Well, I know we're going to win with Dave because he won't let him speak.
I have my own personal filibuster.
Yeah. And Dave can get nasty too. If somebody tries to get nasty with him. But anyway, no, I wouldn't want to suggest that. But anyway, Dave, it is getting late, and I have to go. And folks, thanks again. Please keep in touch and subscribe. Please. See ya. I think we're leaving the scene right now.
No, we're still there. I still see your
It has
mug.
to. There's another drive that picks up when the video comes in. So it comes in.
D'un lion, il y a une jolie fille. D'un lion, il y a une jolie fille. Elle est jolie, parfaite en beauté, qu'elle a charmé. Elle a charmé. je suis